Have you ever felt like you were meant for more? Not in an arrogant way, but in a way so quiet and profound, it echoes in your soul even when the world is silent. A subtle pull when you're alone. A persistent whisper in your heart that says, "You're not like the rest. You weren't made to blend in. You were born to break patterns." This isn't your imagination. This is the truth knocking at the door of your destiny. Because you are the chosen one. Not chosen by men, not validated by titles, not endorsed by the systems of this world, but chosen by God, by the universe, by life itself, or something far greater than comfort or routine. Your calling is not a job. It is a sacred duty. And the moment you realize this, everything changes. The illusion of normalcy. Most people live life as if they're auditioning for approval, checking boxes, meeting expectations, and following a path laid out by others. But chosen ones, we never quite fit into that rhythm. Even when you try to conform, you feel the tension in your chest, as if your soul knows this version of life isn't yours. You were never meant to settle for a life that looks normal but feels empty, because the more you try to play by the world's rules, the more your spirit rebels. There's a reason for that. Your purpose wasn't made in this world. It was designed in the unseen, the shift from assignment to alignment. At some point, the world's definition of success stops impressing you. You begin to crave something deeper, something eternal. It's not about quitting your job or rejecting society. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about alignment over assignment. Alignment with your calling, your essence, your divine frequency. Because when you're chosen, you don't just pick a career. Your entire life becomes a canvas where the divine paints through you. Chosen for what? Let's be honest. Being chosen sounds powerful, but it can also feel confusing. You may ask, chosen for what? Why me? How do I even know this isn't just my ego? Let me be clear. The chosen are not the perfect. They're not the loudest, the richest, or the most followed. They're the ones who carry the weight of compassion. The ones who sense pain in places others don't. The ones who see deeper, love harder, and feel like foreigners in their own lives until they finally surrender to their higher calling. Being chosen doesn't mean you're above others. It means you're here to serve others with clarity, truth, and power. My personal reflection. I didn't always know I was chosen. For years, I chased goals that looked good on paper, but left me feeling hollow inside. I worked harder, achieved more, yet something inside me kept whispering, "This isn't it." I silenced it for as long as I could until the ache became unbearable. That was when I finally stopped chasing and started listening. And in the silence, I heard something that changed my life. This isn't your life. It's your assignment. In that moment, everything shifted. And I understood, from now on it's God's duty. My job? Surrender, align, obey. The burden of being chosen. There's a weight that comes with being chosen. It's the weight of awareness, the pressure of knowing too much to live ignorantly. Sometimes you'll feel isolated. You'll question everything. People won't understand you not because you're broken, but because you're walking a road few dare to travel. But know this, the road you're on was made just for you. And though it's narrow, it's sacred. The divine weight of awareness. When you are chosen, life doesn't get easier. It gets real. Suddenly you start to see, not just people's words, but their motives. Not just the system, but the strings pulling it. Not just the surface, but the soul underneath. This awareness isn't a gift you ask for, it's a responsibility you've been entrusted with. And the more you awaken, the more you begin to carry. Not everyone is meant to see what you see. And that isolation, that ache in your chest, that's the burden of vision. The chosen ones don't suffer because they're cursed. They suffer because they were born to break chains. Why the delay? Why the pain? Let's address the elephant in the room. If you've been chosen, why do you feel forgotten? Why do doors stay closed while others walk through wide gates? Why do you feel like you're in a season of silence, waiting for something that never seems to come? Let me say this clearly. Delay is not denial. It is divine preparation. You are not being punished. You are being processed. When something eternal is being built inside you, time becomes irrelevant. You don't rush the forging of a sword. You temper over fire, over pressure, over time. And chosen ones are always forged in flames. The refining fire. God will let the world strip you not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Everything that was attached to your ego must die, so everything connected to your purpose can live. And that process, it hurts. You'll lose friends not because they're bad, but because they can't go where you're going. You'll lose comfort not because it's evil, but because it dulls your edge. You'll lose control not because you failed, but because control was never yours to begin with. You are not being ruined. You are being refined. You were hidden on purpose. Some of you feel unseen, like the world keeps skipping over you. But what if I told you that's not an accident? God hides the chosen until they're ready, because exposure without preparation is a setup for destruction. It's not that you're not called, it's that you're still in the cave. And in that cave, something sacred is happening. You are being stripped, shaped, tested, and trusted. When you finally emerge, you won't just make noise. You'll carry authority. A spiritual battle, not a natural one. Here's something we rarely talk about. When you are chosen, you will encounter spiritual warfare, because the enemy doesn't waste bullets on empty threats. He targets those carrying light, those awakening others, those who have the power to disrupt darkness. You will face attacks not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous to the system of oppression. You'll feel internal resistance, mental fog, emotional heaviness. It's not always depression. Sometimes it's war in the spirit. But understand this, the battle is proof you matter. Your isolation has a purpose. Chosen ones often walk alone, not forever, but for a season. This solitude is a rejection. It's sanctification. God pulls you away to rewire your mind, soften your heart, and sharpen your discernment. Because when you're finally sent into the world, you won't represent yourself. You'll represent truth. And that requires a level of wholeness that only comes through isolation. If you're in the cave right now, don't fight it. Let it shape you. Let it strip you. Let it burn off everything that's not essential. The cocoon is tight, dark, and lonely, but it's where the transformation happens, the birth of authority. Once the process is complete, you won't just have a message. You'll have weight. Your words will cut deeper. Your silence will speak louder. Your presence will shift rooms not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. This is what it means to be chosen, to die to who you were, and be reborn into who you must become. And that kind of rebirth only comes after spiritual labor. So if you're bleeding, breaking, burning, don't panic. This is the birth canal. And on the other side is destiny, a word of encouragement. I know what it's like to wait in silence, to pray and hear nothing, to believe and still watch your world fall apart. But I also know this. Nothing God takes away is greater than what He's preparing to give. He strips to rebuild. He wounds to heal deeper. He delays to protect. And when you finally step into what you were born for, it won't be because you manipulated or hustled. It will be because you trusted. The shift has begun. It doesn't always come with trumpets. There may be no dramatic signs or breaking news, but deep in your spirit you feel it. Something shifted. The heaviness begins to lift. Opportunities appear where doors were once shut. People begin to notice what they used to ignore. But more than that, you are no longer who you were. You've changed, quietly, radically, eternally. And now, heaven whispers, it's time. Divine alignment unfolds. Things begin falling into place not by effort, but by alignment. People come into your life not for distraction, but for destiny. Resources arrive not for indulgence, but for mission. Opportunities aren't random, anymore they're assigned. You don't chase, beg, or manipulate. You walk in confidence, in clarity, in obedience, because the time in the wilderness taught you that when God releases you, No man can stop you. When it's God's time, nothing can block what's already written. The mantle of authority. What separates a chosen one from a talented person? It's not skill. It's not popularity. It's mantle. A divine empowerment that cannot be faked. A weight of glory that makes your voice resonate in people's spirits. A power that comes not from charisma, but from consecration. When the mantle rests upon you, your words don't just inspire, they pierce. You don't just influence minds, you awaken souls. And this authority isn't loud. It's not boastful. It's holy, stepping into supernatural provision. Everything you thought you lacked in the waiting season, God begins to release. But now, you no longer seek it from a place of desperation, because the waiting taught you something crucial. Your source was never the system. Your source was never man. Your source has always been God. So now when provision flows, you don't cling to it. You channel it, steward it, multiply it, and that's why it keeps coming. Your life is no longer your own. This is the moment many fear, but all the chosen eventually face. The moment you realize you were not saved just to be safe. You were saved to be sent. You don't just carry blessings. You carry assignments. And that calling, it's bigger than your comfort. You are now an ambassador of heaven, a living answer to someone else's prayer. You walk into rooms carrying the weight of purpose. You speak with the fire of revelation. You give not from excess, but from mission, because your life is no longer your own. You belong to the King. You become a voice, not just a vessel. At this stage, your story becomes more than inspiration. It becomes a blueprint for others. Because now you can say, I've been there. I've been broken. I've been overlooked. But I've also been chosen. You become a light in dark places, a steady hand for the wandering, a walking testimony that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And when you speak, people don't just hear you. They feel God through you, from survival to strategy. In the early days, all you could do was survive. But now you're thinking legacy. You're not just reacting, you're building. Not just enduring, you're expanding. Because you now understand the bigger picture. God didn't raise you up just for you. He raised you to raise others. And now, you pour into others what was once poured into you. You break chains not only for your bloodline, but for generations. You lead not from pride, but from brokenness turned into wisdom. And the kingdom begins to multiply through you. The call has always been there. Let's get this straight. You were never average. You were always different, marked, set apart even when no one noticed, even when you tried to hide, even when you felt unworthy. Because the call doesn't come after you get it all together. It was there when you were at your lowest. It was there when you were forgotten. And it's still here now, still waiting, still burning, still pulling you forward. You were always meant to carry fire. What happens now? This isn't the end. This is the beginning of everything real. From now on, you'll walk with heaven's backing. You'll speak with God's authority. You'll give with eternal impact. But don't ever forget where you came from, because the humility of your past is the fuel of your future. God didn't choose you to be worshipped. He chose you to worship through your life. And if you stay yielded, you'll never lack power, purpose, or peace again. If you're still reading, still here, still burning inside, then you know deep down this was for you. Not entertainment, not just motivation, but confirmation. You've been waiting for a sign, for a moment, for a divine nudge that says, it's time. This is it. Now I want you to move, not with fear, not with perfection, but with faith. Share this with someone who's been in the dark. Tag the ones who've forgotten their light. Subscribe if you know this message was heaven sent. And drop a comment with one word, chosen, so I know who you are and we can rise together. Remember this. The enemy tried to bury you, but he didn't know. You were a seed, and now you rise.